I don't know that Shakespeare changed my life until late in life. And if that counts, I'd be glad to talk about it.
I came to bury sin.
Cursed spite that ever I was born to set it.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?
This is the excellent foppery of the world.
Joseph Papp was a friend of mine, and rest his soul, and his passion for Shakespeare was something to see, because it was genuine. I've written about it in a book I wrote on Midsummer Night's Dream, and it's always thrilling to see how theater can affect and change people's lives. I really love my work. I've been doing it for a long time now, and I am still as devoted to working on the script and preparing and being excited about it as I was when I did my very first professional play with Ray Bradbury. It hasn't changed, it hasn't diminished. That's a gift. So the idea that the discovery of Shakespeare, for someone like myself, who was kind of an autodidact, that discovery becomes extremely personal. And you don't take anything for granted. I don't. It's really a continual discovery. I did a terrifically well-received production, Merchant of Venice. And that production went from New York to Stratford-on-Avon in the Swan Theater, which is as close a replica of Shakespeare's theater at the time. The journey I've taken with Shakespeare from the first time I did it in high school, which was Julius Caesar, to through King Lear, which was a very important production, and I did two versions of that one, and that touched my life deeply and richly. What I discovered in that production through Shakespeare was that the opinions that people carry about Shakespeare are really very strong opinions. Whether they're right or wrong is not the point. There are real arguments, particularly about that so-called unplayable play, King Lear. When you start discovering that kind of response to a play, and I don't think even the Greeks, whom I love, have that kind of visceral response that Shakespeare does. Molière doesn't, Pirandello doesn't, Beckett, possibly with his late, because he's so recent, but people take it very personally, which is thrilling, but at the same time, it doesn't leave too much room for experiment. So you begin to discover that as universal as Shakespeare is touted to be, in fact, people claim ownership. They don't allow it, that kind of universality. So I began to doubt the presence or the existence of so-called universality beyond, I suppose music would be the most universal medium. It's not a language, by the way, it's an abstract thing. So that separates it from the theater. But when you discover, as I have, because I travel so much in my work, I've done movies all over the world, and the one thing that draws us together as actors, always, no matter what country I've worked in spite of the language, is Shakespeare. And it's an extraordinary thing to have done the same role as another actor in Russia, for example, and to be just talking through an interpreter and suddenly start discussing a role that we both have shared, him in German or Russian or Italian or French, and it's always the same. We always start talking about the problems we had with specific moments within the script and how we overcame them, or if we never overcame them. Problems particularly with Lear, which everyone is always ready to talk about. But you begin to think, well, maybe it is unproducible because we always have the same problems. But they are the same problems, interestingly enough, whether it's in German or Russian. I'm talking about particular speeches. And that speaks to a universality, a human condition. And it's it's more thrilling because it's language. You're not discussing Mozart, which is beyond language. You're talking about words that this man, Shakespeare, wrote in English. It transcends translation. That's astonishing. And then you begin to realize that if you are experiencing the same problems that someone with a completely different background is experiencing, he truly is universal. And it begins to open your eyes to that, and the scales fall, and you say, yes, this is a very lucky thing for me to be an actor, to be able to examine something that transcends the language itself, something that is to the root and meaning of language. The reason we have learned and insist on speech, it's because we are expressing something that is very deep and primitive, and at the same time, so musically beautiful. What an extraordinary accomplishment. When Bloom talks about the creation of the human, I think he's absolutely right.